We have your weekend Apple news. Welcome back to the channel. It's the weekend, and you know what we do on the weekends. We go through the Apple news. I'm going to go through about 20 to 25 different Apple-related news stories, a couple tech sales. I usually have a beer on the weekends, so sit back and relax. Let's jump right into the weekend Apple news. Okay, story number one. If you're a Mac Studio lover, I have some good news for you. Tell me this is true. We don't know for sure. It's only a rumor. Right over here, Mac rumors. M5 Ultra chip coming to the Mac Studio in 2026. It says Apple doesn't release the Ultra variant for every Apple Silicon chip, but the company is planning to debut the M5 Ultra chip in 2026. Can you imagine that? I mean, is this a rumor or is this true? We know that it actually went with the M3 Ultra last year. They skipped the M4, but they're saying in 2026 it's going to come out with this Mac Studio with the M5 Ultra. That's pretty crazy, right? It goes on to say Apple already debuted the M5 chip in the MacBook Pro, but we're waiting until early 2026 for the M5 Pro and M5 Max variants, and the M5 Ultra will likely come after that, perhaps June or even September 2026 to give you a time frame. So how fast is this chip going to be? Obviously, we don't know any of the benchmark scores really, but they're going ahead and they're kind of guessing on a couple things here, which I want to show you just to see how fast this thing really is. Okay, so this article is from Gadget Hacks right here. I want to give them credit on the website there. It says Apple M5 Ultra chip delivers, well, let's just get to the performance down here. So it says right over here, how will the M5 Ultra push performance boundaries? So it says right here, here's where the M5 gets interesting. The base M5 already looks quick, but the Ultra variant reads like a different class. Estimates suggest that the M5 Ultra could feature up to 80 GPU cores, 80, and a massive 1100 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth. I think the new one that just came out was like 153. This is 1100, if you can believe that or not. Pretty crazy. And then it goes on to say the projected specs are heavy hitters, potentially 24 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores, and up to 240 billion transistors, all right? It says early benchmarks estimates suggest that the M5 Ultra could achieve between 600 and 800 tops for AI workloads. Basically, that's pretty crazy, right? 600 to 800 TOPS tops for AI workloads. Take a look at that, especially with all these new little things worked into their chip as far as accelerating AI. This is going to be just the beast of a beast if you want to get into AI locally on your machine. Obviously, it can take a lot of RAM as well. So it kind of begs the question, are we actually going to get a Mac Pro ever? I don't know. This might be it. Okay, so 2026 is shaping up to be a huge year for Apple, especially Mac products and MacBooks and things like that. Let's read about all the products we think are coming in 2026. Mac rumors. It says Apple to launch these new products in 2026. Apple's planning to launch at least 15 new products in 2026. So we're going to kind of go down here. Okay, here it says the early portion of the year should see the release of the iPhone 17e. That's going to be a really good phone. They're going to increase a lot of cool features on that, so definitely keep an eye on that one. That could be worth it. Hopefully the price will drop to $549 as well. All right, the iPad 12th generation with the A18 chip, that's going to be a great system coming out. The iPad Air with the M4 chip, the MacBook Air with the M5 chip, we're all waiting for that. The MacBook Pro with the M5 Pro and M5 Max chips, we're obviously waiting for those as well. And two new external displays. I believe there's going to be two of them, one at 27 inch, one at 32 inches. Hopefully they'll give just the normal studio display, the lower cost one, a 32-inch option. We're hoping for that. We just don't know yet. And then it goes on to say, basically around March to April, we should see the long-awaited revamped Siri come out alongside a new smart home display and speaker base with wall-mounted options. So all that's going to be coming out just, kind of in the beginning of the year there. And we're all, we're waiting for the AI to get a little bit better. And there's going to be some news coming up later. I'm going to show you exactly what Apple's doing to make sure that happens. So stay tuned for that as well. All right. It says down here, in the fall, the company will release the new Apple Watches and iPhones as usual. That's going to be really cool, especially the iPhone 18s are going to have some good features. The iPhone 18 Pro models will drop Qualcomm for Apple's own C1 chip, although it might be the C2 by then. The first foldable Apple phone is also expected this year, so that's going to be big as well. It says the company is likely to debut smart home security products such as a camera in 2026. A new Mac Mini with the M5 chip is also expected. I hope that comes a little bit earlier, right? We're all waiting for that. Along with the Mac Studio, which I don't know if that's actually coming. It says a new iPad Mini with an OLED display should arrive also, but an update to the iPad Pro is not due until 2027. That's kind of crazy. So we're waiting a little bit over a year for that. Obviously, that one just dropped, right? And what else is there? I guess there's a couple little things here left. Before the end of the year, the company could unveil redesigned MacBook Pro models with the M6 Pro and M6 Max. That's going to be the big kicker here. Thinner chassis, touchscreens, OLED displays. Apple could also preview its smart glasses. So we're talking about all these things in 2026 to get excited for. What are you most excited for? Post in the comments. I want the M5 Mac Mini. I want to see the new MacBook redesign. That's probably the biggest one of all because it's going to be such a different, complete redesign, right? With OLEDs and everything else. That's going to be huge. Smart glasses maybe. But the monitors, I think the monitors are huge for all Mac products. If they can give us a cost-effective 32-inch option at 5, it would have to be 6K, I guess. I doubt they can do it, but if they can do it, it would be great. Okay, just a little bit of news. We didn't talk about this, but we actually got some good news on this as well, because now they actually have a code for this, so all hints are pointing towards this is really coming. Take a look over here. Cheaper MacBook powered by iPhone chip coming in 2026 per new report. You can see it here, obviously. This is going to be from 9to5Mac. We're going to scroll down here. Apple's rumored cheaper MacBook Pro powered by an iPhone processor is back in the news. A new report collaborates, basically, the separate claim that Apple's planning to release a more affordable MacBook. So it's going to be around the A-series chip. It now has a code name, the J700. The machine is currently in active testing in Apple and early production and overseas suppliers. So basically, that's something we've never heard before. They're saying it's well below $1,000. We've heard some other things. We think it's going to be $599 right over here. But we also think now that the screen might actually be smaller. It might be a 12-inch, 12.4-inch, somewhere in that range type screen, making this a perfect travel laptop. And it's going to be, significantly smaller than the 13.4 inch or whatever you want to call it, 13-inch MacBook. It's going to be, an inch smaller than that. And it's actually going to be great because the whole chassis will be smaller, the bezels will be smaller, and it's going to be a great travel laptop. So we'll have to see. And for $599, it's going to sell like hotcakes. We have a lot of, stuff coming in on this right now. So we're before we were about 85%. Now we're about 90% positive this is actually coming. Okay, in case you didn't know about this, for some people this might be a big thing. For others, you'd be like, I don't care. But I still think it's actually a big change for Apple. Take a look over here, Apple Insider. Apple finally bringing the full App Store experience to the web. And you'll see a picture. I'm going to show it to you here in a second. Let's just scroll down though. It says Apple's new browser-based Apple Store lets anyone browse, search, and share apps across every platform. No Apple device is required. So before, how it's kind of clued you where you have to go into like your iPad to search for the Apple Store there and your Mac to go there. Well, now they actually put everything on the web, and it's actually a lot easier. And I'm going to just show you what I'm talking about. So you can go to the web over here. It's actually at apps.apple.com. That's going to be the web domain. So definitely just type that in and you can get it right there. It's going to pull up a web page basically. And this is what it's going to look like. So over here on the left-hand side, it says App Store for the iPhone. That's obviously their most common. But since most people that watch me, we talk about Macs, I'm just going to go right over to Macs. But take a look. You can go to iPad, the Mac, the Vision, the Watch. You can get everything in here right now and get all the apps at once. Search through them. I'm going to click on the Mac here, and it's going to change over to Mac. Now, the one thing that they're saying about this is this actually, developers love this because now this is going to get into the search engine so that when you actually want to search for stuff, for different apps for your Mac or for your iPad, you don't have to go into the Apple Store and do it. You can actually do it on the web now, and there's going to be a lot more information coming out, and it's going to help people find the best apps, all right, versus having them all kind of behind that walled garden. And it's going to still make you go to the web store to actually download it, though. But there's more information on the online version. Take a look. So here we are in the Mac, and there's just obviously this is all the Mac apps, just like you would have at the store. But now when you click on them, it gives you more information. Take a look. You're going to get this first screen here. It's going to say what Apple loves, the two-time Apple Design and Winning app. It's going to give you quick tips and then meet the creator of it here and some other information. And then when you actually click over here and view, you're going to get, obviously, you're still on the web, but you're going to get what you normally would see in the app, when you actually go into the App Store. And you can actually go in here and look at all the information. Tons of information in here, all the different pictures and everything. And then if you go to the App Store right here, it's going to actually launch the App Store. But it's still really cool to have this now because you can go out and just start, if you want to do some research while you're just on the internet or something like that for your iPad or for your phone, just go in here and fool around. Really cool. Cheers, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. All right, so we're talking about this 6K 32-inch monitor, hopefully for a good price. A couple weeks ago, I showed you one that was around $2,000, but the one we keep forgetting about that's actually got good reviews you can pick up right now for a really good cost is right here. Take a look, 9to5Mac. The Asus ProArt Display 6K. It's basically a ridiculously good value at $1,300. So here we go, 6K. They're talking about this here at 9to5Mac, but let's just go to the meat and potatoes down here. Here's the essential specifications. So we get 31.5-inch 6K. Look at the resolution, 6016 by 3384 IPS. 218 ppi, that's exactly what you need for Apple. good viewing angles. Only 60 hertz, but all of the monitors are right now. I know that's kind of a downside for some people. Thunderbolt 4 connectivity, HDR and VISA HDR 600. You can see obviously the color space here, but $1,300 is what they're saying. Also, the stand is going to be tilt, swivel, pivot, and height adjustments. But a lot of times people will say, well, that's kind of the price there. But a lot of times now monitors are gone up in so much cost. I mean, all the cheap monitors now are double the cost because people are blaming tariffs and stuff. Well, take a look right now on B&H right now. I actually went over there right now. It's $12.99, so you can get it for under $1,300 on B&H. Here it is right here, Asus ProArt display. Here, 6K. I mean, 6K, $1,299. And the studio display is still like $14.99 on sale, $15.99 when it's not. You got to consider this if you want a big wide screen. I have a couple 32 inches. I mean, I used to review a whole bunch more monitors. I'm going to continue to do that. But still, that's an incredible price no matter which way you slice it. Okay, so I can't promise this is going to be available at the time you watch this, but it was available right today. I do these a couple days in advance or a day in advance, usually the day before I unleash them. So I just don't know what's going to happen with the sales. But remember that M4 MacBook Air that was at $799? The price got better. Take a look over here. Right now on Amazon, I'll have a link in the description, Apple 2025 MacBook Air, the M4 chip, the base level, but 16 gigs, 256, $749. It dropped another $50. It's down to $749, which makes me think that cheap MacBook's got to have to be like $549, $599 if it's up against this thing, because I would just get this thing otherwise. This is a great computer for $749. It dropped another $50. And then obviously if you want the one above that, the 15-inch, which I would probably get this instead. I got a 15-inch sitting right here. This is going to be the 15-inch laptop with the M4 chip, base level also. That dropped $50 also, down to $949 from $1,200, 21% off. So it's not going to get much cheaper. It's not going to get any cheaper on Black Friday. So if you want one of these things, pick them up. Okay, we have a couple more Apple sales here, so let's take a look over here. Here's the Apple Watch Series 10. This is the 42mm case, but the other one's also, I think the 46 is on sale as well. I think it's just a couple bucks more, but this is actually going to be down 30% right now. I know this is the Series 10, but still 30% discount. Usually $400, it's down to $279. So that's one of the lowest costs I've seen so far on this. 30% off right now on an Apple product, even though it's one generation behind, but who cares, right? But if you want the newest and greatest generation, what about this? Here's the Apple Watch Ultra 3, the newest one, all right? GPS cellular and the 49mm. This is $699, so that's actually 12% off, $100 off right now. But you don't usually see this in the 600s, brand new from Apple. This is from Apple right here. So you get 12% off there as well. What else do we have in here? The Apple Watch SE3, which is the newest version of that as well. That's on a big sale. Right over here, the SE3, 40mm, so it's quite a bit smaller. You can see in here, but you can see the design here with Starlight aluminum case and Starlight sports band. That's 20% off, so that's down to $199 from $250. Again, you're not seeing these things drop. These are low price alerts and very, very good. And then finally, a lot of the things I use is from Mac Rumors, right? I use a lot of their articles and stuff, so I want to give them a shout out. If you go to Mac Rumors, they're running a special right now over here on the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M5. So this is not the M4, but the M5 chip, brand new. Obviously, there's not been many discounts, but if you go in here, I can put a link to this page, but it looks like as of right now, it's at $1487. They're going to give this Mac Rumors price here. So it's like $120 off or whatever, $115 off. That's still pretty good for the M5 right now because there has not been a lot of sales. So I would recommend picking one of these up if you want to while it still lasts. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of beer here because here's one of these pain points for me. Apple Intelligence, all right? Now, again, I'm not huge into AI that much, but I do use it. I'm starting to learn how to use it to my advantage. I don't want it running my life or ruining my life, but I want it to be good enough where I can do small tasks here and there. And I figured that out. So I think they need something, but they're solving it, just like I had mentioned. Let me just show you what they mean here. 9 to 5 Mac. Apple nears $1 billion Google deal for custom Gemini model to power Siri. Pretty crazy, right? So you can see the little picture here. We're going to scroll down. Bloomberg is reporting new details on a partnership between Apple and Google to have Gemini power their revamped Siri next year. Here are the details. 1.2 trillion parameters for $1 billion a year. Not bad, not a bad price at all. I told you Apple will buy something, but what does this mean? Okay, it says Apple Inc. is planning to use the 1.2 trillion parameter artificial intelligence model developed by Alphabet, Google obviously, to help power its long-promised overhaul of the Siri voice assistant, according to Knowledge in the Matter. The iPhone maker is banking on Google's help to rebuild Siri's underlying technology, setting a stage for a slate of new features next year. The Google model with 1.2 trillion parameters, The measure of the AI software's complexity would dwarf the level of Apple's current models. Now, they're testing big models, but they're not in use right now. So for reference, Apple's in-house cloud-based model has about 150 billion parameters, and Apple's local model, which was made with on-device performance in mind, has 3 billion only. This is 1.2 trillion, if you can believe that. So let's kind of scroll down here a little bit here. Bloomberg here says that the project is called Glenwood, which is the code name for Apple's effort to look into third-party providers for Siri. So under the agreement, Google's Gemini model would handle Siri's summarizer and planner functions, the components that help the voice assistant synthesize information to decide how to execute complex tasks. Some Siri features will continue to use Apple's in-house models. And that's the key here. A lot of the stuff that Apple knows they can do themselves will stay Apple, stay security rich. But it'll still be very secure. Why? Because it says also under the agreement, Google's model will reportedly run on Apple's own servers, which in practice means that no user data will be shared with Google. Instead, they won't leave Apple's private cloud compute structure. Take a look at that. So what they're paying them for is to put this model into Apple's servers. It doesn't go out to Google like Google Gemini now, but it uses all of their kind of back-end code and everything like that. Really, really cool. Gurman also says that this new agreement is different from Apple's past explorations, and they basically have found a partner with Siri because they want this to be fully custom to them, kind of in-house with them, not leaving their company, but still have all the power of one of the best AIs out there, which is Google Gemini. And then finally, it says Apple still doesn't want to use Gemini as the long-term solution, despite the company bleeding AI talent, including the head of its models team. We talked about all that. But to that end, the company's model team is working on a 1 trillion parameter cloud-based model that it hopes to have ready for customer applications in the future. So I think this is a transition period for a couple years, maybe a year or two, and then they're going to fully go into their own model, like I had mentioned, exactly what I said before. But I think, who cares, right? As long as it's private, as long as it's secure, as long as it works, I don't care who wrote it. Okay, this next article is kind of interesting if you use like a lot of Adobe products, but you use a Mac and stuff. Well, Apple's kind of doing the same thing. Take a look. So 9to5 Mac, it says iOS 26.2 hints the new Apple Creator Studio could be coming. So Apple Creator Studio. What exactly does this mean over here? Actually, there's a picture of it right there. I mean, obviously, that's a fake picture by 9to5 Mac, but there's a picture. So it says down here, when this beta came in yesterday with a bunch of new existing features, but hidden in the release's code, there's also a reference to a new Apple Creator Studio in the works. It goes on to say that this leak name could be for anything, but it comes on the heels of another recent leak that could be related. Just last week, Paris also discovered evidence the App Store IDs for 4 new iPad versions of existing Mac apps. Pixelmator Pro, Mainstage Motion Compressor. These are all pro-focused apps and could fit nicely into a bundle with sorts, basically, with also maybe things like Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. So imagine these, add in pro tools like Final Cut Pro and then Logic Pro, and then go ahead and call it right here Creator Studio, and then do it for a monthly price, all right? Apple's moving towards the services every single day. This is a perfect service for them where they can get a lot of money from you. Maybe you don't want everything, but you're going to pay a little extra to get a couple of the extra features. You might do it. They know that, and here it comes. All right, so if you're a Mac user and you downloaded Tahoe recently, there's a new update available. Take a look over here. This is going to be Mac Rumors. Apple releases macOS Tahoe 21.6 with new liquid glass settings and more. So today, Apple released macOS 21.6, the first major update of the macOS Tahoe operating system that came out in September. The update includes the following features and enhancements. Liquid glass setting gives you the option to choose between the default clear look or a new tinted look, basically, which increases, and you're going to say, this is going to be the background color of the material and the apps and notifications on the lock screen, so you can basically see beyond it, all right? That's basically what that is. So like instead of, liquid glass on a lot of people, they're seeing this thing kind of, it's just hard to pick up some of the icons and stuff, and they don't like it as much as the old one, and you can now, make this what they call tinted, so there's a tint behind it. That's actually a big setting there. Long story short is like, I got actually this new liquid glass and stuff, and I don't like it that much. A lot of people are telling me they don't like it as much. So I went out and I found a survey from another company, and I'll show you here in a second, on what other people are thinking about the new design. Okay, so this chart here is from 9to5 Mac. You can see what choice have you made on liquid glass. So it's surprisingly, it says, I'm sticking to the default look, which is liquid glass look, all right, just to make this clear. So these people like it. 64.47%, but there's substantial people that don't. So I've used the new Google toggle to essentially switch it off, is what we just talked about. That's going to be 25% of people are switching it off. I've made my own modifications to the settings. That's going to be about 4%, so that's 29%. And then still undecided here, we're going to see here, 29, about 35%. So about 35% of people are kind of either don't like it or undecided, but 65% are just leaving it and keeping it the way it is. maybe because they don't know how to change it. But now you can go ahead and change it with this new release very, very easily. Kind of toggle that on to have a tinted background. So you guys post in the comments, where do you fall on this? A lot of my viewers are saying they don't like it. Maybe because we're a little bit older crowd, we like what we're used to. But overall, I think I might tint it a little bit because it does help it with seeing all the icons. Okay, this next feature is actually a really cool feature, especially if you have an iPhone. So take a look over here. This is 9 to 5 Mac. It says iOS 26.2's new reminders feature is exactly what I've wanted for years. So the reminders feature, let's just say you're using it on the iPhone, or it could even be the Mac, obviously. The Mac is going to be in there as well. So let's just kind of scroll down to exactly what they're finding here, because this is a really cool feature. All right, so right here it says there's another new feature coming, and what is it? Alarms for reminders. And you can take a look right in here. So give me 1 second here. Whenever you create a task with a due time, Reminders now offers the option of making it as urgent. All right, so here it is right here. So you're setting up basically, a reminder in here, and then now you can make it urgent right here. An alarm on Ryan's iPhone Air. So what does this do? So if you mark it urgent, your iPhone will trigger an alarm when the due time arrives. So basically, you can also add for snoozes and stuff, but don't worry about that. The thing to take out of this thing is when you set a very important reminder, maybe you don't catch it on your phone or something, you can now set an alarm with this urgent button, and it's going to do the alarm audible. It's going to make sure you can't forget about it, right? Just like an alarm when you're getting up in the morning. Really cool feature. I just wanted you to know about. Pretty cool. Okay, for this next one, just an update on this. Post in the comments too. Let me know what you think here. So last week over here, if you take a look, Apple Insider, I talked about these, next year's iPhone 18 is going to have these colors here, and iPhone 18 Pro may get one of these 3 colors. So I read the article, a bunch of articles came out saying it's not going to be all 3. Apple's testing these, and they're going to choose one of them. So if you had to choose between these colors, I just want to know what people are thinking. Would you go for this brown color? It's brown. Would you go for the, I guess a deep purple, I don't know what they call burgundy color, or the just regular purple over here? So out of these 3 colors, post in the comments what you guys want. I'm guessing since my viewership is almost 100% male, it's probably not going to be the purple. It might be the brown or the burgundy, but we'll see. So post in the comments. Okay, some bad news for the iPhone 18 though, and we talked about this a little while ago, but here's another kind of iteration about this article here, which is important to know because prices could go up a little bit, and not so much because of tariffs. It says, Mac rumors, chipmaker TSMC reportedly informs Apple of further price hikes. Chipmaker TSMC has begun informing major clients like Apple about the further price hikes, according to this basically report out of Asia. All right. Okay, so it goes on to say TSMC apparently has started notifying major clients of impending price increases for advanced fabrication processes below 5 nanometers. Think about that for a second. This would include A16, A17, A18, A19, M3, M4, M5 chips, as well as future iterations. Price hikes are expected to be in the range of 8 to 10%, and basically over than the last year. So 8 to 10% on that chip alone, but the chips in general are even going to be more expensive, they were saying, overall. So this is just on top of what they were thinking before. So finally, it says if the component cost rumors are true, Apple could limit 2 nanometer chips to only some 2026 iPhone models, such as the iPhone 18 Pro and the iPhone 18 Pro Max, basically to keep the cost down on the lower end models. So we're thinking that could possibly happen. And then, of course, we may not see these $750 M4 MacBook Airs on the M5 version as well, because a lot of these prices are going up, and you might have some tariffs in there as well. So overall, it might be a good time to pick up some of your devices this year. Okay, this next article is if you're waiting for the Apple TV, a couple other products that you thought were going to launch, the AirTags and stuff this year, and we're kind of running out of hope over here. 9 to 5 Mac. It says Apple does launch new products in November. Here's when it happened last. So you can see this. It does happen, but it's not that common. It goes on to say, if you followed Apple for a long time, you'll know that the company tends to launch new products in September every year and often October too. What's not so common is November and December launches. Occasionally, products will be released in the last couple of months of the year had been announced earlier. For example, last year's M4 Macs were announced in October but shipped in November. And the 2019 Mac Pro here officially launched in December but had been unveiled much earlier. So what they're thinking here is if you're waiting for the Apple TV 4K, the HomePod Mini 2, and the AirTags 2, the chances of it actually happening are unraveling pretty quickly because they haven't announced it and we're kind of already into November. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. It probably will just because it's going to spite me. This is a rumor only. Again, I don't know either. So I'm just telling you this is probably dwindling though. So this could be all pushed back to next year as well, which is kind of surprising because I thought these products, if anything, it's been such a long time since they've been updated, they would come out. But who knows at this point? We have to wait. Okay, maybe you're waiting for that new Home Hub, right? Let's take a look at a little bit more information on this over here, Mac Rumors. Apple's 2026 smart home revamp, all the rumors. It's been over a decade since Apple's HomeKit smart home platform launched, and it's overdue for an update. HomeKit and Home app can no longer keep up with the AI-powered solutions from other companies like Google and Amazon, and we know that. So we're going to scroll down here. You can kind of see the picture here of what it could possibly look like. They keep saying it's going to be this weird screen here on a speaker. So Apple's working on the Home Hub, the command center that will serve as a centralized location for controlling smart home products, listening to music, making video calls, getting the weather, hooking up things like Siri, displaying photos, making notes, viewing calendars, and much more, right? So it's going to have a design that resembles an iPad with a 7-inch display. That's what they're saying. I thought it was like 5-inch before, but now it's saying 7-inch. It says the Home Hub will have its own operating system, and while there won't be an app store, Apple basically will have these available widgets here. So built-in sensors will be able to determine when someone's near the Home Hub, and the features on the display will actually change. So I read the whole article. So when you walk up to it, it's going to come up, and then it's going to bring up all the home features because it knows you're around it, all right? And then you can go ahead and punch in what you want. Like you can turn the lights on and do stuff like that. But when you walk away from it, it said it's going to have other things on the screen like the time and the weather and stuff like that. So it's going to have some of those sensors. Now, if you want to actually go ahead and make changes to individual products, there's going to be these widgets which you can download, and they're going to go onto the screen, and then you got to click on the individual widgets to make the changes. That's kind of what they're saying here. And they're saying that this down here is going to be, let me just see here, Apple could price the Home Hub somewhere around $350 here. And I think this is, again, coming out in March or April of 2026, which is going to correspond with when they can finally get this AI debacle done. So that's what they're waiting for, but we'll wait and see. Okay, one more sip here. Here's another article that kind of gets under my skin because I guess it's not a big deal. I always make a big deal of this, but the iPhone Air, right? We've seen that only about 2% of the population actually wants this thing. The sales numbers, they've dropped, the production of it by whatever, 50, 100%. So it's not doing really well. What do they think is going to solve this, though? What do they think that's missing here? Because obviously they have the Pro versions that everyone goes after those. The problem is everyone gets these phones for free a lot of times through their phone provider, so they're not going to go with a dumbed-down version of a phone, right? So what does Apple think is going to solve this right here? Apple Insider. So it says next iPhone Air could have 2 rear cameras instead of 1. So if you take a look here, you see obviously here's the one that's there, but then they're adding this second camera over here. Now we scroll down, it says the leak score is pretty high here. And this is earliest rumors, though. The iPhone 17 Air basically is expected to have the 2 cameras. And this is only a leak, obviously. We don't know for sure. Anyways, just take one last look at this. Is this really going to is it going to be a game changer for this phone, or is this phone kind of, doomed to fail? We see that the Samsung phone that's really thin I think they discontinued it, or they're going to. It's not doing really well. I know Motorola just came out with one. It's not doing okay. Well, I don't know if that's come out yet. We'll have to see how that one does. But I don't think people want these thin phones as much as they just want a phone that works and it's good and it's got the cameras and it's, if they don't feel so fragile with it. So post in the comments what you think. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Okay, some couple new features now are being added to the AirPods Pro that you should know about, especially if you want to travel around the world. Take a look over here, 9 to 5 Mac. It says iOS 26.1 makes AirPods Pro latest feature even better. Here's what's new. So we're kind of scrolling down here, and this really comes down to this AirPods Live Translation supports 5 new languages in iOS 21.6. So we can go ahead and see in here. So what are the new languages that they're actually going to support? Right over here. It says the new supported languages include Chinese, Mandarin Simplified, Chinese Mandarin Traditional, but here's the big ones, Italian, Japanese, and Korean. So obviously, you could travel to any of these countries. Italian's where I think most people in America travel to, obviously, maybe Japan as well. So now you actually have that live translation mode for that, and I'm not going to get too much into it. It's a really cool feature, but that's actually been expanded. Okay, we're going to wrap this up, but just tell me, did you guys actually remember this product over here, Cult of Mac? It says, today in Apple history, Newton Message Pad makes its last stand. If you're a little bit older like I am, take a look at this. We're going to scroll down in here. It says, November 7th, 1997, Apple releases the Newton Message Pad 2100, the last and best iteration of the company's early line of handheld devices. Pretty crazy, right? So the Message Pad 2100, do you remember that thing at all? 1997, doesn't seem like a long time ago, but obviously we're going on, what is it, 20, almost 30 years here, so that's just insane, right? 30 years ago that thing came out, or at least the last version of it did. Pretty cool. All right, once again, I hope everyone had a great weekend. We're going to wrap up this version of it right now. We will see you next week, but look for, I have a couple cool, product iterations coming out this week as far as cool tech products and stuff I'm going to be doing some reviews on, so subscribe to my channel. Catch us on the news every single weekend. We will talk to you soon. Once again, cheers. Oh yeah, my last thing here. Peace.